Hey everybody, my name's Aaron. I'd like to welcome you to my channel, Positive by Negative, where we're taking that dark spiritual coal and alchemizing it into shiny, bright diamonds that we can use for our growth and development in this big old crazy world of ours. So, if it's your first time here, welcome. It's great to see you. And if you're returning, welcome. It's great to see you too. Glad to have you back. And if during this video you find that you resonate with it, give me a like, give me a subscribe. If not, no worries. We can always be friends in some other facet of life. So, in today's discussion, I'd like to talk about something that I think is one of the most fascinating parts of spirituality. It involves other people. We are not islands here. We're not here doing this by ourselves. And so, the role that other people play in our lives is absolutely unbelievable. And so, for those roles, we have divine appointments and spiritual contracts. And those are kind of the same thing, but they're different. The divine appointment part really refers more to the timing of things. You may be supposed to meet a certain person or have a certain person cross your path or have an event happen that involves another person, like at a very specified time that the universe sort of guides both of you toward and, kind of makes it happen. And then the soul contract is more based on the actual agreements that you've made prior to incarnating. Before we come here to Earth, we confer with our spirit guides and our spirit team and the souls of other people that we're going to run into down here, and we kind of get a plan together, and we decide on the lessons that we want to learn and the obstacles we want to overcome and the relationships we want to have in our lives, and then we come to an agreement with all those entities that are involved. And then we incarnate down here, and then we incarnate into basically a state of amnesia where you don't remember any of that. And then it's our job to kind of pick up the clues as we go and put all those pieces together. It's like kind of like a big cosmic scavenger hunt, the way I look at it. And it's one of the most fun parts of this existence that we have here is to see the effect that other people have in our lives. And as I've said in a previous video, there's generally three kind of time frames that people come into your life. There's a reason, if they're here to help you learn a specific lesson or specific task. There's a season, which they may be here, like they may be in your life for the duration of maybe like when you work with them at a job, or if you do some kind of a project with them, or something's kind of a little longer but still a fairly temporary assignment. And then there's a lifetime. There are those people who will be with you through your entire life, more or less. And a good example of that is my best friend from when we were kids. We met the first day of first grade when we were 6 years old, and here we are 40 some odd years later, and we are still best friends. Clearly that person was put into my life for a lifetime. And it's just one of those, we're always, we can not see each other for a year or two and then come back, and it's, just like we fall right back into it. It's just like old hat and stuff, because clearly we were meant to be in each other's lives. And so, I didn't believe in this a lot when I was younger. I kind of thought that everything that happened in life was random or just happenstance. And to be honest with you, I thought, for the most part, a lot of it, I was somehow a victim of. People came into my life basically to, take something away from me, or I don't know. I was very suspicious and kind of resentful of the people in my life. But, a lot of that just stemmed from being a very active alcoholic and addict and just being in that very selfish, self-centered kind of space. But after I got sober, I started seeing these connections happen with other people. It was really amazing. When I was first in sobriety, I was a mess. My life was a mess. Financially, I was in ruins. Emotionally, I was in ruins. And really, so I, got to this place, and I was, I'd had alcohol and drugs to sort of comfort me through all that and everything. But once those things were gone, life became uncomfortable, and it would have stayed so uncomfortable that I don't think I would have maintained sobriety had it not been for some divine appointments that I had with people that led to some soul contract work with them. I had, when I first got sober, I managed to find a guy who was in sobriety who crossed my path, who was, he was retired, he was older, didn't have anything better to do than to sponsor people in a 12-step program and help people get sober. And so I was between jobs. I had a month between, jobs. And so, he was like, come to my house every day. We're going to work around my house. We're going to do, spiritual work and stuff. And basically he crossed my path to keep me busy and protect me from myself, and keep me sort of focused and motivated in the recovery space. And if had it not been for that particular gentleman who had the time, who had the patience, who had the willingness to cross my path at exactly the right time, I very seriously doubt that I would have stayed sober, because it was really rough in the beginning, And so, I kind of had him in my life for a while, and then he moved on, and he pretty much only worked with people that were brand new in sobriety and stuff, and so. The time kind of came for us to part ways, and then right after that, here I was sober. I'd been sober for a couple months. My life was getting back together, but like I said, my financial situation was still just absolutely in shambles, and I didn't know where to start to fix it. And so along comes somebody else, another guy who I worked with in a 12-step program, who happened to be very good at helping people like rebuild their credit, and knew a lot about that, and was able to help me kind of get my life, at least in that sense, back on track. Provided an invaluable service to me. But once again, he came into my life at the exact right moment for the exact right reason, and it led to the exact right lesson. Then he ended up moving out of state and going somewhere else, and at that time I was married to my second wife, and things were okay, but they were kind of starting to dwindle and everything, and it was becoming increasingly obvious that our marriage probably wasn't going to last, and that was really hard, because here I was once again without the alcohol and drugs to comfort me through this, and not really knowing what to do, and somehow or another, here comes somebody else into my life who had been through a divorce, actually 2 divorces in recovery, and was able to share with me what had worked for him and what had helped and everything, and it really enabled me to get through that situation with a lot more grace than I would have been able to do it on my own. And once again, that was at the exact right time, for the exact right reason, for the exact right lesson, and then he actually moved out of state as well, and so it goes. There's been a whole litany of people that have made it into my life, and even when I was using and drinking, looking back, there were people that came into my life during that time who, kind of helped me avoid disaster in a lot of cases and stuff, and it was always just the right timing and the right lesson at the, for the right reasons. And, and like I said, these people tend to kind of come and go in our lives, but, they're absolutely invaluable, because those people act as a mirror for ourselves to kind of show us what it is we need to learn, and a lot of times they have the knowledge and the skills to at least kind of get us going, kind of set us on our way. So it's just amazing to see, when you're open to it, when you're willing to look for it, the effect that other people have in our lives for our growth and development. I don't think we can really do this on our own. Humans are a social species. We're not really intended to grow in a vacuum. You know what I mean? Like, we are all part of this together. We are ultimately all just one big organism. Each one of us is sort of like a cell in the organism, and we work together and grow together. And so, along that lines, I'd like to point out a divine appointment that happened in my life recently that is, clearly led to a soul contract. And what that is, I am undertaking a new project called the Universal Awakening Project. I am undertaking that with Maria Petropoulos. And Maria, I hope I didn't slaughter your last name just then, from Maria's Lightwork Space and Light and Balance. And Maria and I both have YouTube channels, and we've kind of followed each other for a while. And just one day, it kind of occurred to me, just kind of spirit put it in my head, like, reach out to her and get a project going that deals with the ascension of human consciousness. And I was like, okay, that sounds kind of weird. And so I avoided it for a while, and it just, the call kept coming. And so finally one day I was like, what's a harm in asking? So I found she had an info or like an information email on her website. I sent her an email. I said, hey, I know this is really weird. Like, I've just had this like very like strong compulsion to reach out to you to see if you would like to do a project regarding the ascension of human consciousness. And to my surprise, she didn't. Number one, she got back to me and didn't tell me I was weird or anything like that. But number two, she agreed to it. And so we, in very short order, we're able to put a YouTube channel together. We met a couple times just to kind of talk about the mechanics of it. and had really like never even had a real conversation until our very first episode, which we just did last week and is up now on our channel, which I'll put a link to below, and I'll put a link to Maria's channel as well. And it was just amazing when we started that conversation. It was, I mean, it just flowed. It was just like, you know, we've known each other forever, which I'm sure we have. I mean, I think, you know, I am certainly one that believes that the people that are in our lives, you know, probably have been with us for a really long time, over many, many lifetimes. And I get the impression that Maria and I have probably, you know, worked together in at least some capacity for, you know, eons maybe and stuff. And so when we started our conversation, it just flowed so naturally and was just such a fulfilling experience. And so we're going to try to, you know, have a weekly episode for now and kind of see how that goes. But, you know, it's just amazing when you find those people in your life that, you know, you meet and you talk to, and it just clicks. They just get you. You get each other. And that's, you know, a connection that is very hard to find in this life. And I feel ever so grateful for all the people that I've had in my life that have played that role, you know, as you know, as somebody who's, you know, come to really help me expand my life, and, you know, have helped me to like find joy and peace and love. And, you know, so anyway, that's really all I had today. You know, I'd love if you went and checked out our channel, check out our first episode. It's on the subject of spiritual awakening, and we're going to kind of do a series of episodes on different spiritual subjects that we both kind of have experiences with, but we also have a slightly different viewpoints. So, you know, we can kind of look at these things from a couple different angles, and it just really makes it interesting. So I invite you to go check it out. You know, like I said, the links will be in the bottom here. And, you know, I just wish everybody another happy 24. You know, this is such an honor for me to be able to do this, to get on YouTube and like be able to share what I've learned, and then work with other people and share what we've learned. So anyway, I wish you all another happy one, and I will see you next time. Thanks.